My name is Evelyn Reed. I am 82 years old. And for 31 years, the world has believed I was dead. Or worse, that I simply vanished. This was us. Me, Beatrice, Clara, Matilda, and Agnes. We weren't real nuns, not in the way you'd think. We didn't take vows or live in a convent. But in our little town of Ashton, Ohio, we might as well have. We were all widows, all in our 50s, and we spent every waking hour at the St. Jude's parish. We ran the bake sales, tended the gardens, and organized every charity drive. The town called us the Sisters of St. Jude's. Pious, dependable, quiet. That's why, when we all disappeared in the same week, 31 years ago, the town fell apart. The police were baffled. 5 nuns vanish, the headlines screamed. Had we been taken? Had we found a secret, silent convent? Had we lost our minds? The truth is always more complicated. Our secret wasn't about God. It was about our children. We didn't vanish because of a dark force. We vanished because of something far more common, and perhaps far more cruel. We had become a burden. We were just 5 old women who were done being invisible. And our disappearance wasn't a tragedy. It was an escape. It all started not with a bang, but with a brochure. I was 51, a widow for 3 years, and living in the same house I'd raised my son, Mark. It was a big, drafty farmhouse, full of memories. It was my home. One Sunday, Mark and his wife, Brenda, came over. Brenda, all smiles and sharp edges, slid a glossy pamphlet across my kitchen table. "Mom, we've been worried about you," Mark started, not meeting my eyes. "This house is so big for just one person. It's called Golden Vistas," Brenda chirped, tapping the cover. "It's a retirement community. You'd have friends your own age. Bingo nights. Managed care." My blood ran cold. I knew Golden Vistas. It wasn't a community. It was a nursing home on the edge of town, the one that always smelled like bleach and boiled cabbage. I had visited a friend there once. The residents stared at the walls, their eyes as dull as the linoleum floors. "I don't need managed care, Brenda. I'm perfectly healthy," I said, my hands gripping my coffee mug. "But Mom, the upkeep," Mark pressed. "The roof needs work. The taxes. If you sold this place, you'd have a nice nest egg. You wouldn't have to worry about money." I saw it then. The way Brenda's eyes scanned my antique cherrywood buffet. The way Mark winced at a crack in the plaster. They didn't see me. They saw a property. A problem to be solved. A burden to be managed. They were already dividing up my life before I was even gone. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach. This wasn't concern. This was an eviction notice. That Tuesday, I met the sisters for our weekly coffee and complaints session. I was shaking, still clutching that Golden Vistas brochure. Before I could even speak, Clara, the gentlest of us, burst into tears. "My daughter, Susan, told me I couldn't watch my grandson anymore," she wept. "She said I confused him after I told him he shouldn't throw rocks at the neighbor's cat. For 20 years I've been her free babysitter, and now I'm confusing." Then Agnes, small and frail, spoke up. "My son-in-law borrowed my pension check again. He said it was for an investment. I'm eating canned soup 3 nights a week, but I'm the one who doesn't understand modern finances." Matilda, ever pragmatic, just snorted. "My kids just don't call. They didn't even remember my birthday. But they'll be here at Christmas, hands out, expecting their inheritance." Then, there was Beatrice. Sharp, smart Beatrice. She'd been a bookkeeper. She slammed her mug down. "We are fools," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "We raised them. We fed them. We sacrificed everything. And for what? To be discarded like old appliances? To be managed and stolen from until we die? I finally held up my brochure. They're trying to put me in golden vistas. Beatrice's eyes lit up with a terrifying, brilliant fire. No, she said. They are not. She leaned in, and the five of us huddled together. They want us to be gone? They want our money? Fine. Let's give them what they want. Let's vanish. Beatrice, it turned out, wasn't just a bookkeeper. She was an architect of freedom. For years, she had been secretly planning for this. Her own husband had been mistreated by his children, and she'd sworn it would never happen to her. Here's the plan, she said, pulling out a ledger. We are invisible to them. We'll use that. We are just 5 dotty old widows. No one sees us. The plan was audacious. For the next 6 months, we would systematically liquidate our lives. Beatrice had a cousin, a realtor in a small, sunny town in Arizona, who was in on the plan. He would help us buy 5 small, adjoining patio homes in a new community, all under a holding company. We sold our jewelry piece by piece in neighboring towns. We slowly withdrew cash, small amounts, just grocery money. Matilda, whose family never visited, sold her car for cash. We opened a new joint bank account in Arizona under a new name, the Harmony Creek Holdings Group. We were meticulous. We were silent. And honestly, it was the most alive I'd felt in years. We were plotting. We were conspiring. We were taking back the power they had so casually stripped from us. We were no longer victims. We were founders. This is a huge risk. Do you think they'll get caught? Like this video if you're rooting for the sisters. We didn't leave all at once. That would be too suspicious. We vanished one by one, over 2 weeks. Agnes went first. She told her son-in-law she was going on a week-long church retreat. He just grunted and asked if she'd left him any money for house-sitting. Clara told her daughter she was visiting an old college roommate. Her daughter just handed her a list of groceries to buy on her way home. When my day came, my hands were shaking. This was the moment of no return. I packed 1 suitcase with my mother's pearls, the photo of my friends, and $5,000 in cash. I walked through my home, touching the furniture Mark and Brenda already saw as theirs. I cried. Not for them, but for the life I was leaving. Then I wrote a note and left it on my kitchen table. It read, Mark, I have gone to find peace. Do not look for me. I am finally at home. I took a cab to the bus station, not the airport. I bought a ticket to Cleveland. In Cleveland, I bought a ticket to Denver. And in Denver, I bought a ticket to Phoenix. I was just a little old lady, invisible to everyone. A week later, all 5 of us stood in the Arizona sun, keys in our hands, in front of 5 beautiful little homes. We had done it. We were free. That note Evelyn left was so cryptic. What did you think it meant? Subscribe if you need to know what happens next. You cannot imagine the peace. Our new town was called Serenity Springs. We had a small shared garden, a pool, and neighbors who knew us as N.B., Claire, Maddie, and Addie. We gave ourselves new, simpler names. I was N. For the first year, we'd jump every time the phone rang. But the calls never came. Back in Ohio, the police were baffled. Our children put on a great show of being heartbroken and confused. How could their sainted mothers just leave? The town settled on the lost nuns theory. It was easier than believing their own children had driven them away. We, meanwhile, were living. Clara, who her daughter called confusing, started a daycare for the community. Agnes, whose money was stolen, became the treasurer for our homeowners association and was famously strict. Matilda learned to paint. Beatrice ran a poker game. And I learned to breathe. I learned that my worth wasn't tied to being a mother, or a wife, or a homemaker. I was just Evelyn. And Evelyn was enough. We weren't hiding from life, we had finally started living it. We were each other's family. We were each other's keepers. It was the happiest, most profound 31 years of my life. Paradise doesn't last forever. We are, after all, only human. Agnes was the first to go. It was peaceful, in her sleep, her books on her nightstand. We buried her in our little garden under a bougainvillea. Clara followed 5 years later, a sudden stroke while teaching a child to read. We buried her beside Agnes. Matilda, stubborn as ever, made it to 90. She passed away holding my hand, her last words, "Don't you dare let them find you, Evie." Beatrice, my brilliant, fiery friend, was the last to go besides me. We were both 81. She had cancer, but she fought it with the same fury she'd used to plan our escape. On her last day, she pulled me close. "We did it, Evie," she whispered, her voice a dry rasp. "We beat them. We lived. Don't you ever, ever regret it." "I don't," I promised her, tears streaming down my face. She smiled. "Good. Now, go make a mess. Let them know we were here." She died that night. And then, it was just me. The last sister of St. Jude's. The keeper of the secret. This is heartbreaking. Which of the sisters was your favorite? Share your love for them in the comments. I lived alone for a year, quiet, peaceful, tending the 5 bougainvillea bushes in my garden. I was Evelyn Reed again, though the paperwork still said N. I was 82. I was content. Then came the knock. I opened the door. A young woman stood there, maybe 30. She was holding her phone, and her eyes were wide, full of a million questions. She looked familiar. She had my eyes. "Can I help you?" I asked. I'm looking for an Evelyn Reed," she said, her voice trembling. "My name is Sarah. I'm your granddaughter." My heart stopped. Sarah. The little girl I'd left behind. The only part of my old life I had truly, deeply missed. "How?" was all I could manage to say. "A DNA test," she said, tears welling up. I did one of those ancestry kits for fun. It connected me to a second cousin I never knew. I started digging. It led me to a probate lawyer Beatrice had hired. It led me here. "Grandma, we thought you were dead. Dad said you'd lost your mind and joined a silent convent. He had you declared dead 10 years ago." I looked at this beautiful young woman, my granddaughter, and I knew Beatrice was right. It was time. "He was wrong," I said, opening the door wider. "I didn't lose my mind, Sarah. I found it. Come in. Let me tell you the real story. She's been found." I'm shaking. What will Evelyn tell her? What would you tell her? I sat her down and I told her everything. I told her about the Golden Vistas brochure. I told her about Clara's tears, Agnes's stolen checks, and Matilda's loneliness. I told her about the plan, the escape, the 31 years of joy and sisterhood. Sarah listened, her face going from pale shock to a deep, burning anger. "He lied," she whispered, shaking her head. "All my life, he told me you were a tragic mystery. He told me you were unstable. But he did this. He and Mom. They drove you away." "They didn't see me, honey," I said gently. "They saw an obligation. We all became obligations. So, we decided to become an adventure." I took her to the garden. I showed her the 5 bushes. "This is Agnes. This is Clara. Matilda. And this is Beatrice. The one who saved us. Sarah touched a bright pink flower on Beatrice's bush. They're still trying to sell the farmhouse, she said, her voice hard. They've been fighting over it for years, even though they thought you were dead. It's all they ever talk about. The money. She looked at me, her eyes clear and full of a new understanding. They didn't just lose a mother. They lost you. And they never even knew what they had. Sarah finally knows the truth. Do you think she'll confront her parents? Like this video if you think it's time for Mark and Brenda to pay. Sarah stayed for a week. I told her stories about her aunties. She told me about her life as a graphic designer. When it was time for her to go, she hugged me so tightly I thought my old ribs might crack. Are you coming back? She asked. To Ohio? I smiled and touched her cheek. No, dear. This is my home. The sisters are here. What do I tell Dad? You tell him, I said, looking out at the garden, that Evelyn Reed died 31 years ago, right when he wanted her to. But I lived. And I wish him peace. I am 82 years old, and my secret is finally out. But it's not a secret of shame. It's a secret of strength. My son, Mark, inherited a house. But my granddaughter, Sarah, she inherited the truth. And that, I've learned, is the only inheritance that matters. The Sisters of St. Jude's didn't vanish. We just bloomed. Late in life, perhaps, but we bloomed brighter than anyone could have ever imagined. And we are not, and never were, lost. Evelyn's story is incredible. What lesson will you take away from her journey? Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more true stories that deserve to be told.